As we heard the guns, I ordered a halt, and we proceeded to do our part.
Each of our men had an armed Mormon walking right by his side. They said that was because the Indians might start acting up again. That wasn't the real reason, as you will soon see.
I have said that all the small children were put into the wagons. That was wrong, for one little child, about 6 months old, was carried in its father's arms, and it was killed by the same bullet that entered its father's breast. It was shot through the head. I was told by Haight afterwards that the child was killed by accident, but I cannot say whether that is a fact or not. I saw it lying dead when I returned to the place of slaughter. I first heard one gun, then a volley at once followed. McMurday and Knight stopped their teams at once, for they were ordered by Higbee, the same as I was, to help kill all the sick and wounded who were in the wagons, and to do it as soon as they heard the guns of the troops.
The line had been moving along slowly for some little distance, when all of a sudden the figure of a white man appeared in the bushes with Indians all around him. I've heard that he was Higbee, and that he shouted, "Do your duty." Anyway, the Indians opened up fire and then charged down with their tomahawks. Each Mormon walking along with our men wheeled around and suddenly shot the man next to him, killing most of them on the spot. The women and older children screamed at the top of their lungs, scattered every which way, but the Indians ran them down. They poked guns into the wagons too and killed all the wounded. As I have already said, my father and mother were killed right before our eyes.
McMurday and Knight got out of their wagons. Each one had a rifle. McMurday went up to Knight's wagon where the sick and wounded were, and raising his rifle to his shoulder said, "O Lord my God, receive their spirits. It is for thy kingdom that I do this." He then shot a man who was lying with his head on another man's breast, and the ball killed both men.
One of the Mormons ran up to the wagon, raised his gun, and said, "Lord my God, receive their spirits. It is for thy kingdom that I do this." Then he fired at a wounded man who was leaning against another man, killing them both with the same bullet.
I also went up to the wagon, intended to do my part of the killing. I drew my pistol and cocked it, but somehow it went off prematurely, and I shot McMurday across the thigh, my pistol ball cutting his buckskin pants. Knight then shot a man with his rifle. He shot the man in the head. Knight also brained a boy that was about 14 years old. The boy came running up to our wagons, and Knight struck him on the head with the butt end of his gun and crushed his skull.
A 14-year-old boy came running up toward our wagon, and the driver, who was Mormon, hit him over the head with the butt end of his gun, crushing the boy's skull. A young girl, about 11 years old, all covered with blood, was running toward the wagon when an Indian fired at her point blank.
By this time, many Indians reached our wagons, and all the sick and wounded were killed almost instantly. I saw an Indian from Cedar City, called Joe, run up to the wagon and catch a man by the hair, and raise his head up and look into his face. The man shut his eyes, and Joe shot him in the head.
Last November, I passed my 85th birthday, and at the time of the massacre, I wasn't quite 3 years old. But even when you're that young, you don't forget the horror of having your father gasp for breath and then go limp while you have your arms around his neck, screaming with terror. You don't forget the blood-curdling war whoops and the banging of guns all around you. You don't forget the screaming of the other children and the agonized shrieks of women being hacked to death with tomahawks. You won't forget it either if you saw your own mother topple over in the wagon beside you, the big red splotch getting bigger and bigger on the front of her calico dress.